Hi everyone, welcome back to Numerics with Nadia. We are on a new playlist now. If you guys need help on fractions, I have a whole playlist that I've created, but we're gonna be doing a new playlist now all on decimals. This first video is just an introduction to introduce what decimals are. So let's go through and define a decimal. A decimal is a number that consists of two parts. So we've got a whole number and a fraction, and they're going to be separated by a decimal point. So whatever goes in front of the decimal point is the whole number, and whatever goes after the decimal point is a fraction. Another key thing that we'll just touch on now, but we'll definitely get deeper on further in the videos, is that decimals are based on 10. So now that we've defined what a decimal is, it might be a little bit confusing, but let's just bring an example of one. Let's take a look at one to kind of put everything into perspective. So for this example, we have 35.70, right? The 3 in the 35 is in the tens place. The 5 is in the ones place. After the decimal, that 7 is in the tenths place, and the 0 is in the hundredths place. Now, one thing we'll notice, a little key when we go through these, is that, okay, before the decimal point, and I'll go through here and draw that arrow for us, the 3 and the 5 would be considered before, right? Before the decimal point, my numbers end in S, right? The place values are tens, ones, those end in S, but after the decimal point, the blue arrow, they end in THS, right? So tenths and hundredths. So now that we've defined what a decimal is, looked at one example, we have our little key now, let's go through the two main questions I want us to be able to answer and know how to do in our lesson. So first off, I want us to know how to read decimals, okay? So if we're given the number, how would we read them? What is that in words? And the second part, how can I write decimals? If I am given the words, how can I go from the words to the numbers? So these two skills are very, very important. They're gonna build our foundation for all the further videos to come. So we're gonna make sure that we do some examples to be strong on that. So for number 1, let's say that we have 2.16. Now, we can say that, but the correct mathematical way to write that, and the key thing for us to learn here, is we're going to write 2. Anytime you see a decimal point, that would be and then we're out 2 decimal places, and our number is 16, right? So it would be 16 hundredths. So number 1 would be 2 and 16 hundredths. Let's do some more. For number 2, we have 317.001. So before the decimal point, right, we have that 317. We can see that one pretty easily. Once we write the 317, then we would write the word and, right, because and is equivalent to that decimal. So 317, and we have 2 zeros, and then our 1 is in our third place value, so that would be 1,000th. So it would be 317 and 1,000th for number 2. Now we'll move on to our third example. For number 3, we have 11.037. So as we can see, we already know 11 will just be 11, and, right, to represent our decimal point. And the 37 is in our thousandths place, right, because it is 3 after the decimal. So it would be 11 and 37 thousandths for number 3. All right, you guys, now that we've gone over how to read decimals, right, when we're given the number, how we can write it in words, let's do the reverse. So reverse time, we're going to be given words and we're going to want to write decimals now. All right, so let's look at number 1. For number 1, we have 6 and 191 thousandths. So I've found that my students struggle more going in this direction, right, in the reverse order, but let's try it out. So we know 6. 6, anything before that and will go before our decimal. So we have 6 and 191 thousandths. We know that we can write our 6 and our decimal point. So far, so good. What about this 191 thousandths? So that would just follow the 6. 6.191 would be 6 and 191 thousandths because the thousands, remember, it might be confusing, but it's just 3 after the decimal point. All right, guys, let's move on to our second example now. For this one, we'll do a little bit more simple of a question. We'll just have 5 and 9/10. So we have 5 and let's circle that. And is going to tell us something really important, right? And then we're going to circle also the tenths because that's how many place values out we're going to go. So we have 5, we'll write our 5. The and is our decimal point. And then the 9/10, that just is one place value. So we'll just have 5.9 being 5 and 9/10. All right, now that we've done one easy example like number 2, one more middle of the ground example like number 1, for number 3, we're gonna bump it up. We're gonna do a more challenging one. And it's only challenging because it's a little bit longer. It looks scarier than it actually is because we know there's nothing to be scared of, right? Just because it's longer doesn't mean that we can't do it. So let's read what we have for number 3. For 3, it says 381 and 155 thousandths. Okay, so we've got 2 ands going on here. 381 is just a number, so that second and is our important and. That's where our decimal is going to go, and we're going to underline the thousands because that's how many decimals we're going to go out. So we'll write our 381 because that's what we're given. Then we have and, so we'll write our decimal point, and then we'll just fill in the rest. 155 thousandths, let's double check. The 155 goes out 3 decimal places, right? 3 place values. So we are good to go, and we did our last question. All right, you guys, great work today. It's so important that we do videos like this and go over these topics in a slow way to really build our foundation and be able to grow. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to comment any other video topics you'd like to see. And as always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in more videos in our decimals playlist.